for asking for forgiveness and reinstatement. Once you cross certain lines, you should be done. That doesn't mean you can't be a part of a church, but you should be barred from having any position of platform or influence or power. You should not be allowed to be a teacher, a missionary, a deacon, an elder, a pastor, anybody who is anything with any title, you should not be employed by a church. Once you step over into misconduct, harassment, assault, grooming, you should be banned from being anywhere near children or vulnerable people. And it's not just in the church. When the church goes out into the world, we've talked about how they prey on people during disasters, how they lure kids in with fun activities, sports. We've talked about how women are taught from the cradle that they were made to serve men. When you have this dynamic where there is no equality, there's very little to no genuine accountability. They deny it. When you go out into the world as a church leader, they put on a mask, and some have had decades of misconduct. They never tell people, "Hi, I'm so-and-so. I have a lot of misconduct in my past." It's always hidden. It's always swept under the rug. It's all about appearance. But when I grew up in the Baptist church, except for the Catholic Church, they have like the highest CSA and SA of vulnerable people in their congregation. And what did they do? Did they go to the police? Did they stop these people? Did they socially shame and keep them away from the people they had harmed? No, they just moved them somewhere else. They hid it, they threatened, they intimidated. If Christians condemned leader hypocrisy and misconduct the same way they do people who go for abortions, are married to the same sex, or change their sex on their ID cards, we wouldn't have an accountability problem. We would have a consistent, healthy dynamic. But the Catholic Church has never and will never take accountability. Apologizing to victims means nothing if you don't eradicate the cancer from your midst. If you don't have laws that say you will spend the rest of your life in prison, you will be removed from the entire denomination, the entire religious community, people who commit misconduct should be thrown out of the Catholic Church entirely. People who are predators, whether it's legal or illegal predation, should not be around anybody who can be victimized. And it's not even about abuse entirely. It can be spiritual control. The way the church sets up for the community is all about presentation. Songs, sermons are meant to manipulate people emotionally. Activities lure people in. Free childcare is another way they can lure kids in. And just because abuse isn't happening doesn't mean what they're teaching is any less abusive. Without the teaching of abuse, there would be little to no abuse becoming activity. If the religious community didn't support, hide, protect, and intimidate, very few abusers would be comfortable doing their abuse. Because the only thing worse than a predator are the people who protect predators. And abuse comes in many shapes and forms. Sometimes it's control. Sometimes it's codependency. um, intimidation, power imbalances. There's so many ways that people can control somebody, and it can be very legal to do so, but it doesn't make it right. When an institution needs you more than you need it, that is a ripe garden for abuse to grow. And if you grew up in a church that didn't have any physical behaviors manifested as abuse, you got lucky. But every church teaches the Bible, and the Bible is a manual on how to be sexist, supremacist, racist, classist, you name it. Because the way women were treated in the Bible was terrible. The way minorities were treated in the Bible was worse. And that was usually because women actually survived. Male minorities just were completely dead, especially during the time when God gave the land to the Jews. But if your church isn't actively toxic, it's still teaching toxic principles. Religion is all about control. And anything positive is a luring tactic. Phishing, love bombing, inclusivity, they're all tactics in a high control religion to get you hooked, committed, and trapped. Because you can't have a loving relationship with somebody who has a power imbalance and teaches you how to keep that power imbalance in a very unhealthy way. When you go see a doctor, you're aware there's a power imbalance, but a doctor does not take advantage of this. They don't take advantage of your vulnerability, your naivety, your inexperience, your lack of medical education. They're the border control of this relationship, because the law says they and they alone set the rules, the guidelines, and the expectations of a professional relationship. Regardless of age, whoever has the more life experience, the medical and legal preference, and whoever has more authority in a relationship, there is a power imbalance. The difference is, do they take advantage of it? Do they use it to control? Do they use to harm? And a lot of doctors out there are terrible. Some are apathetic, some are worthless, some actively gaslight you. I should know, I've had many family members who went through over 30 doctors to find one that diagnosed anxiety as high blood pressure. You have to be very careful who you trust, who you look to for any guidance. And if you're in a high control religion, it's best to look for guidance from